The Moebius connections Zanza, Amalthus, and Malos have in their respective games are a sight to behold. The themes of stagnation, tyranny, and control are the backbone oppositions to Numa's will. Logos, after all, has a propensity to amplify selfishness, and this information processing unit has been accruing a similar data ever since Xenoblade 1. In fact, this is why it is referred to as id in Sigmund Freud's teachings as far back since Xenogears. And I hope that this analysis will show how Moebius's ideology was a connective tissue that pervaded not just Aionios, but the entire trilogy. Watch humans closely and you will learn one thing. Deep down, they wish they were dead. They kill each other like they swat flies, running towards oblivion like blind rats. They see the divine flame of life and piss over it. They're genius at that, in a class of their own, really. That flame is wasted on them, so I want to give them a little push in the right direction, as the benevolent servant of our wise dad should. Zed's reality in Aionios is a place where humans are killing each other like they swat flies, running towards the oblivion like blind rats. The divine flame of life, as he calls it, is wasted on them because, just like Moebius, Malos believes that humanity's flame needs to be exploited, that they do not deserve it. Just like how Console Y exploits the life energy using flame clocks technology, as Malos says, what humanity needs is just a little push in the right direction. No wonder Malos sided with Moebius so readily as N's blade. In fact, the Moebius symbol as the infinity resided at Malos' sheath well before N accepted becoming a Moebius. As can be observed in the hospital scene, Malos already sympathized with Aionios from the get-go, as evident by the art book as well. In a twisted sense, the eternal now was to be Malos' payback for humanity's cruelty in all the rest.
As the world advanced to each further stage, it was inherited by generations of different life forms. But over time, awareness of Zanza faded. Zanza feared this. In order to escape his own annihilation, he wished for a world in a perpetual cycle of destruction and recreation.
Bionis being filled with life, and the Telethia coming to wipe it out. It was all the will of Zanza.
The first hint resides in the line, Zanza feared this, as the awareness of him was fading, while the world was advancing on the evolutionary scale. The intellect they had and the technology that sentient beings have created were making Zanza's divinity obsolete. Similarly, Zed is humanity's fear personified. But what exactly is at their core that Moebius represents? The fear of non-existence. This is why Zed hijacked Origin's reboot, creating Aionios, knowing full well how their kind were not welcome by Alpha. Just as Zanza said in this line, he wished for a world in a perpetual cycle of destruction and recreation. That's exactly what Zed wished for. A world where each death is linked to another life, just as Aionios represents, the perpetual cycle of destruction and recreation is held like a glue with the burning pots and the flame clocks. Very similar to Zanza's will, Moebius attempted to exert tyrannical control over its people for eternity because of fear. Let's take the conversation to Amalthus, Malos' driver in All Rest, who heavily affected his worldview. I always say this, but one of the best ways to understand someone is to take a look at where they came from. Their childhood, those early memories and experiences are transformative for many people, and Amalthus is no exception. As Zed says, there are two roads set before every individual. What lies down the road you choose? Is it hope or despair? It repeats and repeats as you make countless, endless choices. If the results satisfy, it is well and good, but if they do not satisfy, what then? Will you weep, battered by grief, or howl, seething with rage? Have you never prayed that time would simply stop? Have you wished the now would last forever? As we can see right now, I'm sure the child Amalthus felt the same way. Completely powerless in the face of his mother's death, wanting desperately to stay in the now with his mother, yet time flows. You're not able to choose, you're not able to change her fate. What Amalthus realized that day is very similar to what Noah realized in the prison scene. Whether someone lives or dies is not always in your hands, not always in your control. As an overseer, even if you could reach people, you wouldn't be able to save them.
Do you think an overseer can ever reach others? You know, I thought our lives were like our music, always in our hands, under our control. I wasn't facing the truth. Even if I could reach people, I wouldn't be able to save them. I should have known that. It's unbearable, seeing life slip away from you, even though they're right there. What am I even doing?
As a result of this trauma, in the depths of his consciousness, Amalthus hated the world, just as how Zet hated his.
I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. This one world, I loathe it.
But there is a caveat here, as Amalthus wasn't always like this. Before climbing the World Tree, Amalthus traveled around All Rest as an Indoline priest, helping refugees and spreading Indol's philosophies. At one point in his journey, he helps to heal a soldier, putting bandages around his face, making sure that he's ready for the next battle. But one day, as he was walking on the forest, he bared witness to a robbing of a home. A mother was laying down, not unlike his own mother in the brigands' camp as a child, completely alone and powerless in the abyss of despair. Amalthus was frozen when he saw that, and when he went in there, the soldier was about to kill a defenseless baby, pulling out his knife. It was obvious that this was not just a simple robbery of a man who needed some food or money. This soldier was everything he hated in humanity rolled into one. When he intervened, he saw his face and realized that this soldier was the very same one he helped heal his wounds back in the camp. While attempting to do good in this world, Amalthus indirectly resulted in a mother's death by helping this soldier instead. This was the moment where his faith in humanity was utterly and completely shaken. Going forward, holding this baby in his hands, he could not trust anyone else but himself. He detested the architect's rules that pervaded this world. Was this really the world he intended? He thought before making his way at the top of the world tree. See, his conclusion led him to equate life on Allrest to hell, and hell was what humanity deserved going forward. Not this, not empathy or understanding, a sentiment that Malos wore on its sleeve, holding the distrust and hatred of humanity really close to his chest.
I understand that much. That's just war and politics. But...
Rex?
Hating people, hating yourself. Where does it end? What do you do when you hate the whole world?
You mean...
Destroy it. That's all that's left. Tell me I'm wrong.
When Amalthus climbed the world tree to confront the architect, he'd found both Pneuma and Logos, and even after Malos was unleashed, he tried to find a driver for Pneuma still. He didn't completely give in to his destructive urges. Amalthus initially wanted to fix this world and reconstruct it in his own image, than to outright destroy it, as Malos leads us to believe. He had faith that humanity could still be saved. Just like Moebius, Amalthus had, at least initially, good intentions. He had a tendency to preserve first and destroy later.
You know you can't control it. I hear you've been promoted. By the Praetor.
You? Why?
Just thought I'd come and say goodbye. Would you rather I leave without saying anything?
Goodbye? What would compel you to leave me? You are my...
I've got full control of all my powers now. It doesn't matter if you die. I can keep on going.
What are you saying, Malos?
The Praetorium, the Believers, I despise them all. Humans aren't fit to breathe our air. So, I'm going to give you what you always wanted.
But I never...
I'm clearing out the worthless. Isn't that why you sought the architect? Why you climbed the world tree? Yet look at you now.
You're standing at a loss.
As we can see with Moebius, even the desire to preserve can be bastardized and used for control in the long run. As Tyon and Noah says in the garden scene, Moebius wanted to protect the world too by creating one they could control. That's exactly what Amalthus initially tried to do. Despite the trauma he experienced in his childhood, he still didn't allow the darkness to fully engulf his heart, try to transform this hatred for humanity into a force of good. Yet, Malos was influenced on his unconscious urges already, as id. After all Malos was doing was just reflecting his innermost desires right back at Amalthus. Not unlike seeing yourself looking at a mirror. As the saying goes, when you stare into the abyss stares right back at you. See, this is exactly what I was talking about in my Moebius analysis. The darkness within N was used as a fuel by Malos in his blade, in a reciprocal manner. N's suffering fed Malos in each reincarnation, while Malos fed into that desire to transcend N's suffering in turn. Just as Amalthus now was being swayed into Malos's hatred, now N was being swayed into Moebius's eternity, all in an effort to regain certainty in a world you can't control. While Malos desired destruction in all rest, he desired preservation in Aionios. The actions may look different, but the end result was born of the same urge. The hatred of humanity, lack of empathy and understanding. Ironically, in Xenoblade 3, Malos was the Endbringer that never was. Aionios was a world Malos would like to create after All-Rest's destruction, a world where humanity was exploited. And when that desire was conjoined with someone like N, who desperately wanted to cling to M, the path was paved. Melia says directly to Noah that whether you carve a path to the future or stagnate in the now, the Wielder decides. Think of this as the powerful symbiotic bond between the driver and its blade. N shaped Logos' will in Aionios, just as Amalthus shaped Malos in All Rest.
Moebius aside, the wills of countless people persist, inside of origin. The sword of the end you carry, and Ouroboros, they take their shape from these thoughts. Protect the now, or carve a path to the future, the Wielder decides.
If we come back to Zanza and Shulk, the Wielder decides once again. This world of Zanza's making was stagnant, and Numa's will as Fiora in Lucky 7 and Maineth both are harping on going forward for a reason, to break up the stilled flow of time.
This world is stagnant. It has expired. Therefore, I will ask you, its new god. What is your wish? Will you allow the world to continue to stagnate? Or will you allow it to evolve to the next level? The choice is yours to make.
This idea of whether the world has a will of its own is something that is directly addressed to be Moebius. What I like about Xenoblade 3 is that humanity's collective will is represented on a primal level with Logos, the urge to survive despite it all, which I feel is very accurate. Numa's compassion and wisdom, as evidenced by Pyran Mithra's supposed sacrifice at the end, is not a given. It is something that needs to be earned. Whether by strife or struggle, the urges of self-preservation needs to be satisfied first, so that the higher consciousness values, like compassion, that Numa represents can be exercised. Not unlike Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First, you take care of the basic needs like survival, shelter, and food, only to move up the ladder for compassion, understanding, personal development, and empathy. And this top triangle is not intuitive at all, even if you've satisfied the previous needs. And I think the collective will of humanity being represented with Moebius is a very accurate depiction of psychology in my eyes. As even if the natural next step is there, Numa, humanity will always default to a more primal tendency to stay within the selfish needs of the triangle, the Logos, just to be safe than sorry. What will the world choose when push comes to shove in a world without a god? And Xenoblade 3 answered that question without a doubt. The conservative selfishness of Logos would edge it out each and every time, which is why we need people like Shulk, Noah, Matthew, and Rex to set the world straight, to show people that choosing the safest path may not always be the right one. Let's come back to Xenoblade 2 because I want to show you something very interesting. Malos directly equates the land of Moritha as something all rest will also turn into. Malos wants to destroy humanity more so than the world. It wants to see the world burn because of the people that resides in that world. In other words, he wants to see humanity suffer. That desolation and despair that we observe in the land of Moritha is exactly what Malos desires. He deems this as the hubris of mankind. That word, hubris, I think I remember someone in Aionios that used that same word, wielding Malos himself. No wonder N is Malos's wielder.
It's nothing to shout about. Just a bunch of ruins.
Malos?
A testament to their hubris.
Their hubris? So, humans lived here?
All rest will suffer the same fate.
You feel the anguish, crippling despair. That is the hubris of fools who cling blindly to their hopes, only to find them dashed on the rocks. Of dreamers crushed under the sheer weight of reality. Of abject failures.
Come on! Come on! Come on! That's enough! You're just gonna break your hands.
I don't care! I'll shatter every bone in my body, if that's what it takes!
Just stop!
The point is, both N and Malos are beings on the precipice of despair, no longer having faith in humanity, seeing them as the hubris of fools who cling blindly to their hopes, and as a result of their congealed will, they have found solace in the world of Z's making as a result. N is wielding Malos for a reason. They have teamed up, and their worldviews aligned. Aionios offered them a false sense of certainty after all. They would not suffer anymore. They could be the lords of their realms, having control and power over the people. And the land of Moeritha was not all that different from Aionios when you think about it. It was all built upon one man's obsession. While the architect was full of regrets, he was right in the sense that he was a fool pushing that button as a scientist.
Let's begin the experiment.
The conduit. Our world was not the only one. And I opened that forbidden gateway. I will show you everything. Memories. Mine and those of this planet.
No! The results have not been confirmed! It's too dangerous!
Ridiculous! It's perfectly safe! We are about to bear witness to the birth of a universe! Once, only a god could perform such a miracle. But today, mankind moves one step closer to the divine!
All that remained of Earth in Alrest was half of his body and the land of Moeritha, along with his regret. Not unlike M's regret for what they've done as a Moebius, and how that repentance took form as Noah and Mio as we know it. The architect's repentance took form as Alvis and Numa. The latter operated in Bionis, helping out Shulk against Zanza, while the latter in Alrest, helping out Rex, to fix up this mess he created as a scientist. Imbued with Malos's misanthropic worldview, Moebius recreated that mess as a collective unconscious once again. Control is inherently a limited pursuit in these worlds, as no matter how much power one obtains, it will never be enough to fully escape uncertainty. Zanza, Malos, and Moebius all fell into that same trap. Point blank, the sentient life doesn't want to be controlled, limiting not just Zanza's power, but also Malos and Moebius's to the extent two people can stand against them, to the extent how strong Numa's will. As uncertainty leads to a cycle of fear and control, but that cycle can be broken from the inside out by finding your own agency. That's what Noah did, that's what Rex did. Shulk similarly needed to shut off both Mainit's and Zanza's monados to find his own, the third monado. Remember that Shulk was manipulated this entire journey by Zanza, and even though Mainith did her best to oppose him, Shulk was one of the people. He wasn't a god like Mainith, he wasn't special. He was exactly who he was. Shulk carried the will of the people as a Homs, the will of Bionis and Mechonis, both to create Numa's true monado to defeat Zanza's Logos. In fact, there's even a nice Trinity processor reference by Lines in the final confrontation. Even if Zanza longed for friendship in Bionis, he did so by force, by control, similar to giving someone money for them to be your friend. It's just not gonna work. What will happen when you run out of money? So Zanza feared this. Instead of forming real connections with people by sharing his humanity as a god, his weaknesses and shortcomings, instead of showing his soft belly, he wanted certainty and power instead. Zanza decided to shield his insecurities, bottle it up and suppress as much as possible by taking away people's individuality, so that by force everyone would be dependent on Zanza to exist. And what I really love here is that Alvis points out his flaw elegantly. The will of agency is non-negotiable, something Noah hammered home in Xenoblade 3, the will to choose, the will of the providence that limits even the power of a god.
The power a god cannot be overcome!
Zanza, this is the providence of the world. Even gods are merely beings restricted to the limited power determined by providence. That power, although great, is not unlimited.
That voice! Albus! How dare you disobey me! Ah!
I am Monado. I was here at the beginning, and I will proclaim the end.
But that's impossible.
Shulk, it is time for you to choose. Does this world belong to Zanza, or does it belong to you?
That is something I decided long ago! That's simple. Today, we use our power to fell a god, and then seize our destiny!
If you enjoyed this episode, you need to watch my Moebius analysis, as it's personally one of my favorites. Think of this analysis as this one's extension. Making this video was really fun, so give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.